Where is the B2B SaaS marketing landscape heading in 2023? If you peered into a crystal ball, I'd suggest it would be cloudy and overcast. Given the more challenging economic conditions, the marketing landscape has shifted. Until early 22, marketing was about growth and customer acquisition. Today, it's about exploring new ways to attract and engage prospects and, as importantly, keep existing customers. For many B2B SaaS companies, it means the marketing mix strategically and tactically has to change. They need to take new and different approaches. And as we know, change can be hard. So it's easy to see how marketing could be a one step forward, one step backward proposition this year. On this episode of Marketing Spark, I'm talking with Andrew Arocha, Chief Revenue Officer with Drift, which pioneered conversational marketing. Andrew joined Drift in July after nearly 5 years at Oracle. When I was approached to have Andrew on the podcast, I was intrigued by how he's stepping back from the fray to figure out how marketing will evolve in 2023. Welcome to Marketing Spark, Andrew.
Thank you. It's nice to be here.
This is a loaded question, but what do you see as the biggest changes in the B2B marketing mix in 2023? What channels or approaches are gaining momentum and what's falling out of favor?
Yeah. The biggest trend I'm seeing is really in B2B marketing is the shift to revenue stack. And so traditional marketing stacks, right, they're very it was harder to measure. The old adage of half my marketing budget is wasted. I just don't know which half that is wasted. And so there's a lot more focus on ensuring that you can actually tie the technology to results. And so what I'm seeing out there is kind of CMO CRO alignment a lot tighter now. Things like signal-based marketing, things like real site engagement and conversation marketing obviously is a big part of that. And things like ABM strategies are starting to get a lot more focus and attention because they're easier to measure. I think that's one key trend. So much falling out of favor is just like, now, what do we prioritize? And looking at things that tie to results that you can measure better or getting a lot more attention. Not that these are falling out of favor, but the bigger projects that are taking longer, for instance, the CDPs, they had so much momentum, but it's hard work. I'm seeing those projects being put on hold for this year while companies retrench and start to think about like really intelligent ways they can do more with less and kind of spend less to get more.
It's an interesting landscape in the sense that data allows companies to instantly assess whether marketing activities are successful or not. But what about the other side of the fence, the marketing that can't be measured, things like dark web and dark social, and as important, activities like brand awareness and thought leadership, which are more slow burn, long term propositions? How do marketers balance the need to drive results and revenue in the short term, but still position themselves for long term success?
For Drift, for example, too, where we have a really great brand and there's a lot of just activity and awareness of the Drift brand. So we're starting to pivot some of our budget to more results oriented ABM strategies and things like that. Brand is absolutely still important. I think for 2023, it's going to take a bit of a backseat for a short period of time. Like you said, that are more like experiential and harder to measure, those will get less funding in 2023. Not that they'll go away, they'll absolutely still be spent on awareness campaigns, on brand campaigns. There's things that you just need to do, right? Where we're seeing the focus, especially as we said, the theme for 2023 that we're seeing is kind of do more with less. And companies are having to make some really hard choices right now on where they can spend, right? As budgets get cut. That's where I see for this year, it is the focus on where can we drive the revenue, where can we tie an outcome to. And I think that those other things like awareness and like brand marketing are still going to get some budget, but I think that they're going to get less.
To me, what's interesting is that Drift did an amazing job approaching marketing from a two-pronged perspective. One is that it was very much focused on brand awareness and creating that whole conversational marketing category and really double down on content and putting the leaders front and center in front of the conferences and things like that. And at the same time, it also was driving revenue. A lot of brands didn't have the luxury of being able to do that. They didn't build their brands over the last 2 to 3 years. What are their challenges if you don't have brand awareness? If you're not like a Drift and everyone knows who you are, how do you balance the need to make people aware that you exist, which is a huge challenge for many companies, but at the same time, drive revenue, especially as you suggest, budgets are shrinking and companies will have to do more with less?
Yeah. It's good for us. It's easier for me to say that because Drift has such a great brand and such awareness. Particularly in B2B, there's companies out there that just don't enjoy that same kind of brand recognition. They're going to have to make some hard choices about um, kind of what to do. The things that we're seeing are things that just a lot more scrutiny on how I can get, again, the more with less, but a bigger impact, right? How can I get a bigger splash? How can I use social? And what I'm starting to see too is some of these smaller companies is just really getting very aggressive in social marketing, and not just from a marketing silo perspective, but really getting the whole organization engaged in posting and doing blogs and doing video marketing is incredibly explosive right now, right? So I think that's something you're going to continue to see B2B marketers really double down on is video marketing. I think there's going to be a lot more strategic and surgical about how they go about it, and some of it's going to be some guerrilla type tactics where one of the company is going to have to be involved in promoting the face of the brand.
What do you see as some of the more effective or successful, more with less tactical approaches to marketing? Obviously, marketing budgets are among the first victims when there's any kind of slowdown. Marketing is sort of low hanging fruit, even though it shouldn't be. But are there some things that you're seeing or that Drift is doing that epitomize this approach to marketing in 2023?
Sales and marketing tends to be the first ones to be looked at. If you look at even the posts on Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, we're doing what I just said, which is get the whole company involved in being marketers and being in the promotion kind of motion. You see a lot of posts. You'll see posts from me, you see posts from our executive team, but you see posts also from down the line. There's a lot of activity that you're seeing from Drift right out in social channels. I think that's a really good thing. We are doing some very targeted events that's based on our ABM strategy. I think really smart ABM as well is a major focus. And so there's still going to be the need for events. The larger events are, for us anyways, the larger events are a little harder to justify, but we're doing a lot of more smaller intimate events that's getting some payback, and just anything that we can do that's not a big, and of course we're still doing SEO and we're still doing display, but anything that we can do to take some of that, to lessen some of that budget, or at least not grow it, and still promote the brand is what we're looking at. The way that we're doing that is through social, through we're doing sending emails. We're actually picking up phones, by the way. That's still an effective method. And we're doing a lot of that too, just to get the brand out there. And the events that we're doing that are a little smaller, more intimate, lower cost, we're also helping to promote the brand.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned conferences because for many B2B SaaS companies, they were the go to marketing and sales activities. Companies spent huge amounts of money going to conferences, even though many of those conferences likely didn't produce the leads and the ROI that they expected. But there was this expectation that they had to be everywhere. If the competition was there, they had to be there as well. So the question that I have to ask you is, when and if will conferences make a comeback? How do you think companies should approach conferences to drive ROI? And on the flip side, how do conference organizers change the way that they operate their business models, the value propositions to companies, and how do they bring them back in the fray? Because the reality is, conferences got expensive. They're expensive to attend and they're super expensive to sponsor. And it was a great business for conference organizers. I'm not so sure it was a good business proposition for many companies who felt the need to be there. Your thoughts on that?
That's a great point. It was the whole FOMA thing that drove a lot of attendance by vendors to these big conferences. There'll always be these big conferences. I mean, CES last year it was completely down, right? To like 45,000 attendees. This year is about 115,000. But it's still off from 2020, which was about 170,000 attendees. There's still people willing to attend, but not at the levels that it used to be. To what I was saying earlier, the kind of smaller, more intimate, more purpose built agendas are we're seeing the expected attendance in those. And so we're doing with a partner of ours, Sales Loft, we're doing these revenue roundtables where it's very targeted audience, very targeted content and real discussion. And so it's not just a pinball ping pong from one vendor's booth to another. It's a very intimate setting with like-minded individuals, whether it's small intimate dinners or it's conferences that are smaller in scale but very very strategic, where attendees know they're going to find like-minded individuals. Those are the kind of conferences that we're seeing still attendance be very high, and or at least to expected levels, as people also start to ease their way back into their physical world. That's still a factor that we're dealing with.
Walk me through this conference with Sales Loft. I think there's a lot of companies out there that want to do events. They recognize the value of events and connecting with prospects and reconnecting with customers after many years of not even seeing people
Right.
in real person. I
Yeah.
think there's a lot of people who'd like to know the recipe or the tactical approach that you're taking to this specific conference. And we can use this as an example of the
Yeah.
new type of event. How many people, how many sessions, how many days, how much does it cost attendees? Like, obviously it's strategic, it's focused, getting the right people at the in the room and making sure that the attendees get value. They walk away and they say that was a day well spent. That was worth flying into a particular city. It was worth the expense because I got a lot of insight. I met a lot of great people. Can you sort of peel back the onion in terms of how this event is happening and how it's organized?
Specifically, the revenue roundtable dinners I was speaking of, that's us bringing the event to them. And they're very intimate. We're talking 20 attendees at a high level. And we're doing things. So, not just a celebrity chef, but we did one in Chicago where it was actually, we went to the celebrity chef's house. And the participants got to walk around the house and explore it. It was wonderful. It was very well received. And it also provided the ability then to have a conversation, right? Which is what Drift is all about, and actually share a conversation across a table, keep that theme of that conversation going. That's very different from a conference where it's very much you go, you sit, you learn in a session, then you come out and you go to somebody's booth and they'll tell you a few things, and you go to another person's booth. And so having an organized conversation that starts and ends is very valuable. From a conference perspective, I think, back to your original question too about where kind of event organizers should be thinking about the ROI equation of it. I think is that I part is really important. As you said at the start of this topic, is it's hard. It's hard to measure. For first of all, I think 2023 is going to be the year of like measurement. Can we measure results? Is it worth the investment? And so that investment part of it is critical. So finding things again, like we did, which was a little bit of the norm. There's not a lot of times I've been to a celebrity chef's house, but those kind of things that can be a draw and be a lower cost of entry is where we're doubling down on. And then as far as like actual conferences, we're attending things like the Sixth Sense conference, the Sales Off conference, because it's all tied to that revenue stack. And when you think about the revenue stack, it's much more about, okay, signals, intent, how I can use that then to feed personalization on site, including our conversations. And so when I pick them up on site, I'm ready to have a conversation with this person because of what I know about them, and then hand that off to a sales law for ABM and retention. Those very purposeful revenue stack kind of conferences we're finding to be very valuable, because again, it's back to these people are very like-minded about their revenue systems.
The event that you're doing with Sales Loft, is that the dinner in Chicago, or are you doing a separate conference, smaller salon like conference with Sales Loft?
We've done their conferences, we've done 6 ounce conferences, and we'll do those again. The dinner series, what we're dubbing the revenue roundtables, those are city by city. We've done them in New York, we've done them in Raleigh, we've done them in San Francisco, we've done them in Chicago, and we're going to continue to do them because they're producing results. Compared to the big conferences, compared to sending people to CES, it's a lot lower cost and a lot more intimate.
You mentioned earlier in the conversation the focus on ABM, and a lot of B2B SaaS companies are leaning into ABM because it's more focused, more structured. You can measure much of the activity of ABM. In this whole shotgun approach to marketing seems to be disappearing as budgets shrink and companies are focusing on the people who matter to them. Can you provide some context in terms of how Drift is approaching ABM these days, or how B2B SaaS companies should approach ABM, best practices, some of the things that have worked at Drift without revealing trade secrets? Because a lot of companies are interested in embracing ABM, but it's a multifaceted kind of activity, and giving some guidance on the fundamentals would be very helpful to a lot of companies.
I appreciate you saying it's multifaceted because it truly is. And it's really been everything, right? Then there's kind of getting it right, which I'm seeing a lot more, particularly in B2B, a lot more organizations start to get it right. I've been involved in some ABM strategies that were no more than, hey, we're going to do field dinners and follow it up with some email campaign. But to really be effective in ABM, you need, first of all, and this isn't giving any trade secrets, is you need tight alignment with sales, marketing, customer success, product. You need really tight alignment across the organization. I think that's where it starts, coming up with a strategy and then taking the data that each one of these groups is seeing, right? What customer success is seeing, what sales is seeing, what marketing is seeing, and organizing that data and then using that to make up your strategy. And then it's about, okay, what campaigns are we going to run? What kind of plays are we going to run? Who's responsible? Having some kind of RACI model. And then really where I see ABM fall down often is the execution part of it and really holding every stakeholder accountable to the outcomes of that ABM play, whatever it may be. I think that's key.
The way that I approach ABM with clients, at least one of the fundamentals that I look at is this whole give, ask philosophy to ABM. Is that if you're trying to engage prospects, trying to engender brand affinity and get them to trust you and see you as a value added resource. So they get to the point where I want to engage with this company. I want to have a conversation with them because they seem like they're empathetic to my needs and my interests and my success. A lot of that is around content in terms of delivering resources that are valuable and insightful. Do you see that as sort of a fundamental pillar for ABM, to give a lot and then you can make the ask? How about coming for a conversation? Do you want to see a demo? Do you want a product tour? Is that seen as one of the important things that companies should embrace?
That is a key pillar of an ABM strategy, right? Is to just surround an account. And first of all, again, back to the data part, it starts with making sure that that core target accounts that you want to go after, your core ICP, is you really need to vet that out, right? Because you're going to be spending a lot of money and time and resources, right, to target these accounts and market to them. So you better make sure you have that right in terms of the targeted account list. And then it's a longer play, and it's the give, and then the ask. And it's about awareness and surrounding them with thought leadership as well as a big pillar of that. Sharing with them information that could be them, sharing with them, networking with them, right? Inviting them to things where they can network with other like-minded individuals. From a drift perspective, the conversation we think really plays well into that ABM strategy because it's a conversation. It's not a hard sell.
One of the things I wanted to ask you is, as much as there's a focus on driving revenue and attracting and engaging new prospects and ideally closing them, a lot of companies need to focus on keeping their existing customers in the fold, making sure that they're engaged and that they continue to see value from the platform and that they don't start to explore other options. It's easy, especially if you're a lower price product, customers get fickle, they get bored, they get tired of your product and they start to wander, especially as they get approached through programs like ABM. What do you see as some of the keys to customer retention and making sure that churn doesn't become a problem, particularly in an age when, as you say, companies are spending more and they have to spread their marketing and sales spend across more channels, or maybe they don't, maybe they focus on specific channels. How is Drift approaching retention? Any new wrinkles for 2023?
First of all, I think 2023 is the year of retention. It's absolutely top of mind, particularly in B2B SaaS. It's absolutely top of mind. And we're seeing a lot more of our customers and prospects come to us with the ask of what's the strategies for retention? What's the strategies for cross sell, upsell, and expansion? And we're providing that. In fact, we posted a blog out there on the do more with less. I think starts to approach like some of that topic. All the focus used to be on acquisition and some on retention, and we're seeing that shift now. And we're seeing some of those strategies and tactics that worked for acquisition, even like ABM, we're starting to point towards retention, towards customers, right? Because they're going to be key in 2023. Taking all those motions like ABM, like signal-based marketing, what our customers are doing on site, and are they looking for information? Okay, let's meet them right there with a conversation and assist them with the Drift platform. I can send you either back to sales because I'm looking for a new feature, or I can send you to service because you need help with something. And giving that golden glove treatment to the customer base is critical. And then the other thing that they're doing is they're taking all of those, all the strategies and tactics they would do on the acquisition side, and I'm seeing them start to mingle and marry that with your actual customer health scores, your customer support data. So you can really start having a strategy about really getting all the signals in the customer 360, right? That is critical for this year. So we're seeing a lot more focus on retention and also on cross sell, upsell, and expansion, because when economic times are such as they are, getting revenue from your customer base, it converts higher than net new win rates. And so we're seeing a lot more attention being placed on, we need to retain our customers, but we also need to cross sell, upsell, and expand in our customers, not just for the revenue, obviously, but also for the stickiness, right? And as customers start to adopt more of your technology or more of your product, there's a likelihood that they're going to stick around.
That has to be a nuanced conversation. If you're a customer and you feel like you're paying a fair price or a premium price for the product, and during tough economic times, the vendor turns to you and says, "Hey, do you want to buy some more of our stuff? Do you want to embrace the platform more? Can we sell you more seats?" The reaction may be, especially if they're under sort of limited budgets, or their spending is being restrained. Listen, and I'm a customer already. How much do you need from me? Any suggestions on terms of how to make that a gentler, more user-friendly conversation, as opposed to the customer feeling like they can't get growth from new customers, so they're squeezing me right now?
Every vendor wants to do this, but I think you're seeing a lot of them back off is that, hey, I'm going to just give you an uplift at time of renewal, or I'm going to raise my prices just because I'm having a hard time myself and I need more money from you. That's not going over well. What I'm seeing the appetite to spend is when you can bring more value to them. So either through
Mm.
innovation, because it's something that the platform or that just wasn't there before that now I can offer you, or what I'm seeing a big plan is consolidation. Like for Drift, we can bring to our customer base that some of these customers didn't even realize that they could do this, but we have video capabilities, we have calendaring capabilities. So that consolidation is really starting to get a lot of momentum in terms of I can actually lower your overall spend and give you more capability.
I would be remiss if I didn't ask you about conversational marketing, given Drift is one of the leading players in the marketplace. Chatbots are everywhere these days. Everybody seems to have one. There's many, many, many players and new players emerging all the time. From the Drift perspective, how is the conversational marketing landscape changing? What are some of the things that we will see in terms of, wow, I didn't, that's totally different from what happened in 2022? And overall, what's the demand out there for conversational marketing?
So for us, it's been really good. The demand is great, particularly going into times like this where you need a value proposition that you can tie to results. Our statistics are through the roof when it comes to qualified leads, win rates, pipeline generation, conversion. There's story after story on our site that you could check out where actual customers give testimonials. Where conversational marketing is kind of maturing to is this platform play. Because as you said, there's all these, a lot of other technologies have like hung chat on as like, let's put chat on top of this service module, right? Or let's put chat on top of this map or whatever it may be. But the ability to have conversation as a platform, and it's beyond chat too, because it's all the other things that we're doing, like intelligence of what visitors are doing on your site and where they're pathing, and then how I take that and like inform my chat. So there's these things outside of just having a quick chat conversation. They're valuable. And in the platform, what we're seeing is back to an experience, Clay, is customers want something that can go across marketing, sales, and service. That's why we have the various modules, because one CMO that I had the pleasure of interviewing had told me like he made a hard decision to take out all the other chat solutions from his stack because he just wanted one common experience for his site visitors. So if I come on and I'm not a customer, well, then our chatbot's helping convert that. It's having a conversation. It's AI based, so it's having a conversation even when the salesperson's not there, which is another big kind of improvement I think in the area of focus is AI. But I'll get back to that. So then from sales, I can convert, and then as a customer, when I come back in for a service issue, it's that same chat experience. So we're saying the need for a conversation platform, not just a conversation sale or a conversation service. And then the other trend that we're seeing is AI based, because again, back to the whole do more with less. There's people aren't hiring more salespeople typically right now. Companies aren't. And in fact, some of them are going the other way. And even the sales force that you have, they go home at the end of the day and they go to bed. And so having something that can be near human like, that can keep the sale moving along, keep the pipeline progressing while a human being isn't there, is critical. And we're seeing a big uptake in AI, is every industry is.
The other area that I wanted to ask you about conversational marketing is personalization. The idea that the experience is relevant and specifically designed for you, and it evolves as your interests and requests change. Can you talk a little bit about how AI is helping that progression? We're hearing a lot these days, obviously, with Chat GPT and the whole power of AI, its impact on the ability to personalize the experience when you're involved in the chat environment, the conversational marketing environment.
Chat GBT, that's probably a whole other session for another time. So AI, as it relates to how we've deployed it, it's definitely, it's taking everything it knows about you. And that's, there are some table stakes things there, right? We're able to understand outside of the chat conversation with Drift Intel what people are doing on your site, right? We're able to take what we know and meet them, right? I mean, our common theme has always been meet buyers on their terms, where they want to be in the right channel with the right conversation, using AI to help facilitate that. So taking all the signal data, all the intent data, take everything that we know about them, and then using that to personalize an experience with them when they come to site and engage with Drift. That's key. And then having AI's ability to know the site contents, the product catalog, things like that, so that I can surface up the right conversation. It's not going to be an exact human conversation, but it's near human, which is, like I said, in the do more with less, it's proven to be very, very critical for our customers.
We've covered a lot of ground in half an hour. Final question is, where can people learn more about you and obviously Drift?
So drift.com is a great place. There's a lot of content out there. One of the other things that we just launched on site is to go there and find solutions by industry too. For this year in 2023, we're seeing companies start to look at taking their existing solution and getting into other verticals. That's something that the Drift is doing. So you can see solutions for financial services, for manufacturing, for professional services, and obviously for tech SaaS, which is where we evolved. So they can browse the site, they can reach out to me at Arocha at drift.com at any time, and I'm happy to get on a call, a Zoom, or have a conversation.
Thanks, Andrew, for the great insight. And thanks to everyone for listening to another episode of Marketing Spark. If you enjoyed the conversation, leave a review, subscribe via Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or your favorite podcast app, and share via social media. To learn more about how I work with B2B SaaS companies as a fractional CMO, strategic advisor, and positioning and messaging consultant, email mark@markevans.ca or connect with me on LinkedIn. I'll talk to you soon.